I'm recording, and students, I'm recording now. Over to you, Chris. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Tyree, and hopefully everyone can hear me very well. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today. For myself, based here in beautiful Melbourne, I'm meeting on the Boomwurrung country as well. So we are so thrilled to be here today to talk to you and give you the opportunity to learn a bit more about Telstra and the opportunities that we have on our graduate and our summer internship programs as well. I'm joined, Tyree mentioned two people on the call as well. We have Sheila and Lachlan. I'm thrilled to be having them joining the call. They are current 2021 graduates on our cohort, doing a couple of different roles in the organisation. So we'll hear from them in a couple of minutes, and then of course we'll have lots of opportunity at the end for questions. But I'm keen to talk a little bit about Telstra and our graduate program, and more importantly, some tips along the way for the actual recruitment process. The timing of this is perfect for us, if I'm being really selfish about it. We are currently advertising for our graduate cohort for 2023. We have a huge cohort who'll be joining us next year. We've got a demand from the business of 240 graduates that we're expecting to be able to recruit and join us in February next year. And now that is by far the biggest cohort that I've ever seen in my 6 years at Telstra. So really, really exciting from our point of view, and really exciting that the organisation continues to invest very heavily in young talent coming through. And of course, it's all aligned to our overall strategy and what we call our T25 strategy, which is Telstra 25 or 2025 strategy. So a really exciting period of time, a little bit nerve-wracking as well, as we're trying to find such great talent in the graduate cohorts here. So just a quick bit about myself. My name is Chris Smith. I'm based here in Melbourne. I'm the Early Careers Product Owner. What does that mean? It basically means that I'm responsible for our graduate programs, our summer internship programs, our sourcing channels, how we identify talent coming into the organisation, and more importantly, once we've got that talent, what sort of experiences do our graduates and our interns go through to ensure that we are continuing to develop them as individuals, both on a professional and as in the culture of the organisation as well, and making sure that they are then role ready. So at the end of the 14-month program, be ready to roll off into some really exciting roles that continue with their career with the organisation. So I've argued to many people before. I've actually met with Andrew Penn before in a lift once, and I said, I think I've got the best job in the world, because I get to meet all this young talent that comes through and see that talent then move through the organisation. And one of the best parts about my role is, having been here for 6 years, I now run into grads who I recruited some time ago, and I now hear about the experiences and the roles that they've got, which is just brilliant to see. So yeah, it's a great part of the role and a great part of what I do. So that's myself. Sheila, if you can come off mute, I might hand over to yourself for a bit of an introduction about what you're doing as well.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. I'm Sheila, and I studied in Macquarie as well. I did Bachelor's of Engineering with a major in Telecommunications Engineering. I graduated in 2020 and started my grad program last year in February. So in my grad program, I had experience working with various teams on the mobile radio access and the core network. Some of my roles were setting up cell sites to increase network capacity during special events when there are large crowds, using tools to predict coverage and implement changes to improve network performance. I also had to analyze network performance using KPIs like throughputs. When the KPIs were low, I investigated cell sites and determined the causes of poor performance. These are some of the things I did under the radio access team. And when I moved to a different team in the core network, I mainly spent time learning and working with Ansible playbooks to automate the process of configuring and deploying virtual servers, F5s, using CI/CD tools such as Bitbucket, Bamboo. The core of the network is SDN based, so the network functions are virtualized and deployed in Telstra's private cloud. I also had the experience using Splunk and Grafana to visualize data, writing Python script to extract data from applications and sending to database, executing SQL query to generate graphs. Along with that, I've had experience using F5 load balancers, firewalls, VMwares, Therefore, I got a lot of exposure in different technologies and learned many skills during my grad program in Telstra. So I'll pass on to Lachlan to introduce himself.
Thanks, Sheila. Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, my experiences sound a little simplistic compared to that. Sheila's is very technical and very impressive. Yeah, same as Sheila. I studied at Macquarie. I actually graduated at the end of 2019 and started the grad program in 2021. So looking for a grad role in the midst of a pandemic was a little daunting, but yeah, glad I ended up where I ended up. So I actually studied business information systems and a commerce degree. And in my time at Telstra, I've worked on the implementation of Telstra Enterprise's CRM Salesforce, which is actually the largest CRM used worldwide. For that, I did some business analysis, requirements gathering, developing training tools, and conducting surveys and analysis for the users and onboarding new teams like our billing department. Since then, I've moved into another part of the business called Telstra Purple, which is an amalgamation of a bunch of different companies that Telstra's acquired over the last 5+ years. And in that area, I'm working in our services technology strategy team, where I'm currently working on our workplace security strategy and also developing website and other parts of the team's resources. That's, yeah, I'll pass back to Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Sheila, and thank you, Lachlan. Terrific stories you both got, and clearly, as you indicated, Lachlan, right from the outset there, applying for a role and being successful in starting a new company in the middle of a really serious pandemic when majority of Telstra employees are working from home. That must have been a challenge. So I'd love to hear from you a bit later about that and how you actually overcame that, but continued to build rapport, build a network, and of course be impactful in the job itself. So it's a credit to both of you for getting through that at the time. Now I noticed at the start, I'm going to play some games with the group on the call here. Tyree said he encouraged everyone to come off, or put their cameras on, sorry. And I'm just looking through the group now. I don't think anyone's put their camera on. So I would encourage you to put your cameras on. Something we talk about a lot about Telstra. Well done, Najah. That's great. One of the values that I hold really dearly at the organisation, which isn't one of our formal values, is find your courage. It's something I talk about quite a lot, which is find your courage to do something a bit different. Now, in this case, it's putting your camera on and actually maybe asking some questions later on. So hopefully, from what both Lachlan and Sheila talked about, might spark a couple of questions you can either put in the chat or we can save it for a bit later on when we have a bit more of a engaging conversation. Tuso, it looks like you've got some gloves on. Are you doing the washing there, or are you in some sort of laboratory? But that's all right, we can come to that bit later on. Fantastic. Well,
sorry,
can everyone see the screen here?
With some things, sorry, but I'm listening.
That's all good. Multitasking in a pandemic is terrific. Can everyone just maybe give me a little thumbs up? Can you see the screen? It should say Telstra Macquarie University. Excellent. See, the beauty of the camera, it's already working itself. Thank you so much. As I said, I want to talk a bit about Telstra, a bit about the graduate program, but more importantly, some tips that might help you getting through application processes as well. Overwhelmingly at Telstra, and you've probably all heard about Telstra, you know about Telstra, you've probably all got products from Telstra, so you know about our mobile phone and internet connections as well. But overwhelmingly, what we're looking to do at the organisation is to continue to focus on our culture and our people, which is a really, really important part of what we do, and particularly important part about how we recruit our graduates as well. Because at the end of the day, if I be really simplistic about it, lots of graduates come to us with a very similar degree and probably even have similar grades through that degree. Then what we look for is the cultural fit, how passionate they are, what do they know about the organisation, and how do their studies then align to what we're looking to complete as well. So our purpose at the moment, and this is where we go and recruit 240 people into the organisation to start with, the purpose is to create a brilliant, inclusive future for everyone around the country and have that a genuine cultural fit as well. So we welcome people from all genders, ages, ethnicities, and to focus on fairness and opportunity for some of the underrepresented groups like LGBTI+, Indigenous communities. We're doing a lot of work around Indigenous communities and providing graduate opportunities, and certainly people who are living with a disability as well. We've got some terrific partners who assist us with that. So it's something that I'm really proud of and something that really aligns to my passion when working with the organisation. I've put this slide up here because often, and I've worked with a number of large organisations, often organisations say, well, here's our values, and you get told the values in the induction when you come into the company, and then you kind of forget about it, you don't think about it much anymore, and the values almost get put in a top drawer and then just slide the door shut. One thing that Telstra does differently, and I hope that our graduates agree with us, is they live and breathe the values. And this comes from Andy Penn, our CEO, right down through his leadership teams. They are always talking about, when they're referring to our new products, new initiatives, taking over various organisations, they'll always reflect back on what it means and how does it align to our values. So I wanted to put this up here as well to talk about them briefly, because I think it's really important if you're a graduate who's looking to join any organisation, in particular looking to join Telstra, that you understand what our values are and that you are aligned and potentially even agree with these values, and do they should also match your own personal values. Because if they're not aligned to our own values, it's going to be really difficult to work with the organisation if you don't agree with them. But overwhelmingly, we are change makers. We are here. We've got at the forefront of all the latest technology. We are here to build a completely connected world, and certainly a completely connected Australia. We have some terrific initiatives around new technologies and 5G to enable us to do that. And of course, if you think about everything you do today, even the car that you're probably driving is all connected to the internet. Now, without the internet and without all us being change makers and moving with technology, a lot of what we do today wouldn't even be physically possible, including having this forum to be able to chat to you as well. We are better together. One thing that Telstra do very well is consider themselves being one team. That's a really hard value to align when there's 25,000 employees across the organisation, across multiple functional units, multiple talent segments. But that's one thing that has been really driven very hard from top down, is that we are better together, and that we should be working together. And that's also now starting to be reflected in some of the agile ways of working that we've aligned to with our chapters across the organisation. We care. We have to care. We have to care about everything that we do, and we also have to question everything we do, and how does everything that we're doing, how is it going to impact a customer one day? How's it going to impact on some of our products? So again, really important for us. Another one here, which is my favourite, but we've sort of got a bit of a question mark next to it, is we make it simple. It's really difficult, again, for really large organisations to try and make the complex simple. But we work very hard at that, and it's certainly part of everyone's KPIs, is when we look at our processes, how complex are we creating some of these processes? Sometimes we're the ones who actually create these ourselves and make it complex for even to do work itself. But we want people to continue to question why we do certain things and how could we make it a bit simpler, and certainly making it simpler for customers. There's been a lot of work to reduce all the products out there, simplify invoicing, and make it a little bit easier for our products to do business with us. The graduate program we have in place at the moment is designed around 8 career pathways. So this is an initiative we brought in about 2 years ago, and I was heavily involved with this, working with HR and also working with business leaders. So we really dulled it down to say, where does the organisation want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? How does it align with our strategy? How does it align with our overall strategic workforce in the organisation? And what skills are we looking to continue to develop and bring into the organisation for us to be successful down the track with our products? So it was a terrific initiative that we went through, and I'm pleased to say that this particular process has been in place for 1.5 years now. But the 8 pathways that we recruit graduates into is our network engineering graduate stream, which is typically a lot of mechatronics, electrical engineering, any type of, I guess, computer science type of degrees can be well aligned to this particular pathway. Software engineering kind of speaks for itself a little bit. Data analytics and management, so the data science and heavy data sets, so looking at every product where it touches, looking at our retail sectors, how can we continue to use data to make data-informed decisions down the track. Our product and service design, so are we continuing to build the best products that are available in the market for our customers, both commercial and consumer customers. Very much into the technology consulting and solutions, so that's where our frontline sales are working closely with our engineers to ensure that those products are exactly what our customers are are looking for and how do we innovate on each of those products. Information and cybersecurity, a really important area of the organisation as everything continues to move into a cloud environment. What sort of cyber security have we got? How do we secure our products with our customers that we work with? So a lot of time and investment is being put into those areas. Of course, in our HR, to perhaps a lesser extent than our technical streams, the HR and the finance and business opportunities as well. So there's 8 pathways that pretty much cover every functional unit across the organisation. I'll be completely transparent with you. Majority of our volume of graduates does fall into the technical streams, which is the network engineering, software engineering, data analytics and management, and information and cybersecurity. That tends to take about 60 to 70% of the overall cohort. You might have read about this already on the website, but our program is a purposeful program designed around a 14-month program. Now, the purpose of it, as I mentioned before, is to align to our T25 strategy. The idea is that we bring in young talent, we attract, we recruit. More importantly, we want to make sure we are developing that young talent through various forms of learning. That's formal learning and completing courses. It's learning by actually doing the job itself. You can never underestimate how much development you're actually getting by doing the job on a repetitive basis, but also having those connections into your team. So a bit of the water cooler conversation when you are at work. It's amazing what you can learn from those conversations, or sitting in stand-ups, listening to other people who are expertise in these areas, hearing them talk, being able to question them. It's incredible how much learning can come from that. So we want to make sure we're focusing on that. But overwhelmingly, what we're looking to do is bring this young talent in, develop it for that 14 months, and ensure that you are ready to then take that next step in the organisation as you continue to develop your career. And we'll provide you all that support, both from the Early Careers Centre, but also all our chapter leads and our chapters that sit within each of the functional units. So, applying for a job at Telstra. Now, I'm going to whip through a few of these because I think there's some important questions that might come from it. And you've probably already started to think about your applications. You might have already applied for a couple of other roles as well. First and foremost is your application starts with the forms that you complete and the resume that you submit online. So ensuring that you are representing yourself as best you can in a resume format is, I think, really important. Once you've actually applied and submitted all those details, you'll then be assessed and you move very quickly through to some online assessments. So there's typically 2 that you'll complete, which is a personality style assessments, cognitive style assessments, and also then moving through to a virtual interview. So majority of candidates will actually go straight through those assessments into the virtual interview. Again, I'm going to ask for a bit of a thumbs up. Has anyone completed a virtual interview before? And when I say that, I mean an actual, when you're doing an interview over a video where you're actually being recorded and you're answering questions in a virtual environment, not with someone actually on the other end. It's like a recorded session. Okay. Jessica, thank you. I can see that. There's a couple others I can see in there as well. So that's another part of our process as well. So be prepared that if you're applying for Telstra, there will come a point where they'll say, right, you need to now log on to this portal, and we're going to ask you 2 or 3 questions that you have to answer in that forum. And there's some terrific tips we can talk about how to get through those. Of course, what you're looking to do is certainly build your brand. Now, I would suggest anyone who's actually been in this forum today, that's a first start in actually building your brand. I can see everyone's name across here. We've got a recording of this session. We can see who's applied for it. We'll be able to then track your applications coming through. So well done on taking that first step to build your brand and actually attend something here. And thank you again for putting your cameras on as well. But your resume, of course, needs to tell us a story. It can't just be, oh, I went to high school here and I did this university degree and I've been working at McDonald's or at the pub. That's great. Everyone does that. I want to know a bit more about yourselves. So making sure that the resume is telling us a story. At the same time, I'm sort of contradicting myself here a little bit. I also don't want to have 4 or 5 pages of resume that I've got to read through as well. We will be overwhelmed with applications. So making sure that your resume is punchy, it's relevant, it talks about your experiences, some of the talents, but most importantly, how does it relate back to Telstra? So whatever you're doing at school, or sorry, at university, whatever you're doing outside, your passion for technology, whatever that might be, how is that relating back to Telstra? And then how do you going to represent that in a resume format? Also, if you're going to put a covering letter together, making sure it does talk to Telstra. You'd be surprised how many covering letters I get, or cover letters, sorry, I get, where it says, "Dear Chris, I'm looking forward to working at Qantas because I think you're a wonderful organisation," etc. "Dear Chris, I'm looking forward to working at NAB you'd be surprised how often that does happen. So making sure that if you are applying to Telstra, it does represent us as an organisation. Your profile, which you're putting on the career site, it'll ask you for a few questions around your background. Of course, we're looking for your education. We want to hear about the skills that you've developed. So if you are applying for a network engineering role or a data role or a software engineering role, then talk to the coding that you've done, talk to the technology you've done, talk about some of the subjects that you might have done that you think might be of interest to us as well. So really represent yourself as best you can. Your experiences, whether they be paid or volunteer, we want to hear about them. And that doesn't mean, it could be as simple as being a volunteer at a local community environment. It could be a captain of a sports team. It could be a drama club that you're involved in. We want to hear about your passions. We want to hear what you're doing. Just because you've got a great degree doesn't mean you're going to fit into a Telstra culture. So I'm actually more interested about people who have got some interests outside of their studies and how they can take some of those behaviours and skills and teamwork skills into a real life working environment as well. So tell us about your personal interests. Tell us about the things that you enjoy doing. I think that actually makes up a terrific part of what a suitable graduate is for us, because we've talked very much about work-life balance as well, which is important. And from a visual point of view, when you get through to that video interview, and then certainly for the face-to-face interview at the end, first impressions certainly count. It's our first look at yourself, so the content on the page should jump out as much as it can as you're building that brand as well.
Chris, have you got a moment? I saw a hand from Morveen that was up. Morveen, did you want to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Oh, sorry. I had my hand up about the virtual interview question. I've got to lower it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. All good, Morveen. No, lower the hand, and then if there's a question later, certainly jump in. I'm going to ask another question then of the group. How many of you applied for roles recently and you think that you might have been under-researched when you've applied for those jobs? I've certainly done it. Yep. Awesome. I'm going to dive myself in here. I went for an interview a number of years ago with a plumbing company, a very well reputable plumbing company called Reese Plumbing. I knew they had a graduate program. I turned up. I didn't know a lot about it. I should have known a lot more about it. I didn't do a huge amount of reading and research. And of course, the first question that they asked was, what do you know about the company? What do you know about our program? How would you improve the program if you had the opportunity? And I sat there and went, you're an idiot, Chris, because you haven't done the right research. And I got caught out completely. Lo and behold, that company didn't employ me in the end. And I'm pretty sure it was because of those first few questions that came in. So the best tips I can give you is when you are applying to organisations, and I know you're going to apply to lots of companies and you have every right to do so, make sure that you're doing enough research so that you are going to get through to those interview stages. There's no point applying for, say, 10 different organisations without doing all the research, because you might get caught out for all those 10 and not get through to that next stage. Particularly with an organisation like Telstra, there is a multitude of information that you can search to find information out. But my first point of call would be jump on telstra.com, have a look at some of our products, have a look at what Andy Penn's talking about. If you can get to our financial pages, understand a bit about how we're performing as an organisation, how we performed over the last few years, what's happened to our share price. Has it gone up? Has it gone down? Why might it have gone down? What's some of the technologies that might be impacting on what we're doing? What does a T25 strategy mean? What does it maybe mean to yourself? If you're going to work for the company, or you're passionate about where the organisation is going, and be passionate about what the company, or how the company is performing as well. And I'd even challenge a lot of our graduates to ask them, do they know how we actually make money as an organisation? Do they know how we're performing against our financials? That's a pretty important thing to know when you're employed with the organisation. Browsing our social media, there's lots of opportunities to jump into YouTube, LinkedIn. There's some awesome videos out there of things that we're doing that will educate you and hopefully get you all so really excited about some of the opportunities that might exist for yourself. Google everything, tap into any connections. Most people I know seem to know someone who has worked at Telstra or does work at Telstra. Even challenge yourself. Go into a store one day and say to them, what do you like about working at Telstra? Tell us a bit more about the organisation. That again is going to continue to equip you with the information to make sure that you are making the right decision when applying for the company. And also get to know our industry and who are our competitors and how do we compete, and where does Telstra fit in against our competitors as well. For those who are successful in getting through to the final interview stage, now we used to do a lot of face-to-face interviews, but of course the pandemic has taught us that we can do a lot more virtually. From our point of view, it makes it a lot easier for us to complete a lot more interviews in a shorter period of time than having to set up rooms and offices, get people to come into the office, someone calls in sick, there's a delayed train. You wouldn't believe how frustrating it can be at times. So the virtual environments create a really slick way for us to complete interviews. But we'll spend time reviewing your resumes beforehand. So making sure, again, you're comfortable with the resume, you're comfortable with everything that goes in there, and be prepared to talk against some of those experiences and how it might link back to the opportunities that are sitting here at Telstra. Again, if you've got a passion for software engineering, what does it mean to us? How can we utilize those skills to design, build products that might impact on customers? That sort of reference, I think, will hold you in really good stead. Interviewers love to see passion, and I don't mean coming in and being completely over the top and getting out of what your own personal character is. Stay in character, be yourself and be authentic. But if you're passionate about what you're studying, that's probably going to align really well to the organization as well. So have a think about how you can display some of that passion. You'd be surprised how many people just love to hear the excitement in graduates' voices, and that will hold you in terrific stead as you go through. Just another little tip as well is addressing interviewers or interviewees by their first names. You'll get introduced at the start, but utilising their name throughout can actually build incredible rapport. And be prepared to communicate why the role in the company appeals to you and why you believe that you have the skills and attributes. I meet a lot of graduates and have done for a number of years with Telstra and other organisations. The first question I love asking is, why have you applied for Telstra? Why have you applied to ANZ? Why have you applied to Qantas or CommBank? What I don't want to hear, and I get this 9 times out of 10, is, oh, Chris, I've applied to Telstra because you're a really big organisation and you'll be able to develop me and all my skills, and it'll be terrific to work for a large company who we can do that with. That's the end of their answer. My question to them is, well, that's fine, but any company in Australia who is large can offer you that as well. What I want to hear them say is, I want to work at Telstra because I've done lots of reading and research, and I've seen that you've got some awesome products that go out to your smart homes and smart devices. I've got some skills that I think would be really relevant for those, and I've got a passion to continue to develop technology and utilize my skills to develop products. If you can see the difference between that from showing the passion in what we're doing versus, oh, very generic, I just want to work for a large organization because they can provide with great training, that can be the simple difference between getting through to those next stages. So think about how you want to represent yourself and how it's relevant to Telstra. And of course, with our graduate program as well, you'll also be asked to prepare a small pitch, but we will set you up for success. We'll give you all the information, and sometimes it might be a question around how can 5G change what the scope of technology or the opportunities that 5G might be able to present for Telstra in the future. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but what we're looking for is how have you aligned that question to technology, to your own thinking, and of course, again, to your own passion coming through. Some really basic interview tips that might seem pretty common and I guess a little bit dad talking to sort of kids type of scenario, but it's actually really important for us as well. To dress appropriately, business casual is the best way to approach it. I don't expect grads to turn up in a full suit and a tie environment if they're from home. Sometimes we see it, but I don't think it's necessary. But dress comfortably, but dressed in a sort of a business casual type of environment where you're comfortable in actually presenting yourself. I think that'll help as well. Arriving on time if it's in person, or certainly testing the technology beforehand. So making sure you've got great internet connection, making sure there's no noise in the background, making sure the lighting's quite good, they can see your face. If you've got a household full of kids or other people the same age, let them know. Send them out for a walk, give them $5 and go and buy a cup of coffee, tell them to come back in an hour so you've got an environment you can really concentrate and work hard on. Paying attention to your body language as well, because all we're looking at is one screen and one photo. So if your eyes are darting off and you're distracted by your phone that beeps or your Apple Watch that goes off, making sure you're really looking at your body language. This is one of my favorites, is asking insightful questions. I'll sort of double it up here, but asking questions as well. Every interview will give you the opportunity at the end to ask questions. Now, I'm still staggered the volume of candidates or graduates who say, no, I don't have any questions. We've covered everything off. No, I'm good to go. I'm staggered by that, because there's no way in the world that we could have covered everything off. You must come to an interview with 2 or 3 questions written down on the side. Now, if you don't get the opportunity to ask them, that's okay, but I think you will in majority of cases. So have questions that are relevant. And I want to give an example. This is going back about 4 years ago now. I sat in an interview with myself and a guy called Andrew. Andrew was a very senior leader at Telstra, but he wanted to get involved in the graduate interviews. He's about 6'4". He's quite an intimidating looking guy. He's got a big, deep voice. He's actually a bit of a softy at heart, but when you first meet him, he can be quite intimidating. We had a female engineer who had interviewed, and I thought she actually interviewed very well. And at the end, he said, "Do you have any questions for me?" And she paused and said, "Yes, I do. You're a senior leader in the organisation. I've read recently on the Telstra website that there's a big focus on cost saving in the organisation. What are you and your team doing to participate in this cost saving for the overall strategy?" And he paused and he sat back and he said, "That is the best question I've ever had from any graduate." She had the courage to ask the question, but it was also an incredibly relevant question. Now, long story short, we finished the interview. She left. He turned around to me and he said, "I want you to ring her in the next 10 minutes and offer her the job." And I did. I rang her and she barely made it outside on the Collins Street in Melbourne. And she was just jumping on a tram, and I said, "You performed brilliantly, and that last question actually sealed it for you." And she's still with us today and doing some incredible things in network engineering. So make sure you do have some great questions that you can ask, and don't be afraid to ask them at the end as well. Just getting back to the interview, you might be familiar with a couple of different interview practices, but Telstra typically use the CARE methodology. So we'll be asking behavioural questions, which are typically tell us about a time when you've worked on a project and something didn't go well. Tell me about a time when this happened. Tell me about a time when the project worked brilliantly, might be the question. But what we're looking for is for you to answer it in the CARE methodology. So even if you want to go to interviews and have written down the side, C-A-R-E, and of course, C stands for we want to hear the context. So if you're telling us a story about something that happened, give us the context, give us a bit of an overview of what the situation was. Then talk about the action and refer to the action that you did. I'm not interested in the action that others in the team took to get to the end result. I want to know what you did and how you participated in that. We're also really keen to hear what the results were. So as a result of your action, and you did A, B, and C, what was the result and what was the evidence to prove that you actually completed that successfully, or even indeed it might be unsuccessfully as well. But be familiar with the CARE methodology, which I think will hold you in terrific stead. Just finally, before we finish up, because I'd love to hear from yourselves and hear any questions you've got for myself, Sheila, or Lachlan. Just some continued tips for success is practice all your stories. Before you go to any interview, before you apply for any job, think about everything that you do in your current life. All the stuff you do outside life, could be with family, friends, the things you're passionate about, the studies that you do, what you love about the studies, and practice those stories. Be prepared to talk to those and understand how some of those behaviours can be relevant for us. Be authentic. I don't want someone who is trying to put on a face that we think we might like. Be yourself. I think far more graduates will be successful through an interview process that they come in and completely be their self. Be specific with your answers. It's all very well to give us a great story around that CARE methodology, but making sure you're actually quite succinct as well. We don't need that story to be going on for 7 to 10 minutes because you can probably lose some of that, that authenticity along the way. But understand your strengths and completely believe in yourself. You've all got terrific degrees that you're doing, which is probably on the result of some great high school achievements as well. You're probably doing some amazing things out in the wider life. You've all gone through a COVID environment where you've been studying during COVID. That's probably thrown up all sorts of challenges for you as well. Reflect on those challenges and how might they then reflect on an organisation. How do you overcome those? But yeah, completely believe in yourself. That's it. I feel like I've waffled a fair bit. That's probably the most important slide that I'm concerned about. That's the website address that takes you to our applications online. If you don't have time to write that down, just Google Telstra Graduate Programs. It'll be the first one that pops up. But that's the web page to go and read about all our pathways. There's some videos on there about experiences that graduates have had. That, of course, then can link you back to the Telstra website to understand more about it. But that's where you go to apply for those particular roles. Those roles are advertised now. We are very serious about recruiting a lot of people, 240 to be exact, which is a huge cohort next year. Can you imagine starting on the first day of your job and you arrive and there's 240 people who are probably similar age, similar interests, similar backgrounds? That's one of the most unique environments you'll ever walk into in your entire career. I can pretty much guarantee that. So we're really excited about it, and hopefully some of the people on the call are as well. but our applications are open now, today. They will close on the 4th of April, so you've still got a couple of weeks. But my best advice is if you're genuinely serious about Telstra, apply over the weekend, because we are continuing to screen and process applications as they come in. We don't wait till the end and then watch them all and go from there. So if you're looking to apply sooner rather than later. Okay, I might stop sharing so everyone can see perhaps myself or the wider team, but does anyone have any questions? Sheila or Lachlan, in the chat, were there any questions that were thrown up, or does anyone want to find their courage to come off mute? I think, Jessica, I can see a virtual hand being literally put up there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So you can jump off mute and ask that question.
Thank you. I just wanted some maybe advice would be the right word with the virtual interviews. I've done them in the past, and I found I'm usually very confident in interviews, and it's where I thrive rather than on paper. But I found I had a lot of difficulty with the virtual interviews because there was no interviewer to bounce off, because I tend to bounce off the interviewer, make lighthearted jokes, that kind of thing in interviews. And I've had trouble in the past getting past that virtual internship stage just because it feels a bit awkward and stiff. And do you have any, I don't know, kind of feedback or tips that might be helpful for that?
I'll kick it off, but I'm sure Sheila and Lachlan, who've only been through it recently as well, can probably share a couple of tips. And you're absolutely right. It is a really stiff environment, isn't it? There's no one to sort of at least build rapport and say, how are you? How's the weather in Melbourne? How's the weather in Sydney? Chat about some things. So I understand it is quite difficult. I just dial it back a bit to say, when you're applying through the Telstra sites, you'll get the question up front. You'll have time to think about how you want to answer it. But you've also got, I think it's 3 chances to record it. So if you were halfway through and you just went, no, I've mucked this up, I haven't, you know, I'm umming too much, whatever it might be, or there's a fire engine driving past your house in the background, you can actually stop it and then re-record it. But I wouldn't worry too much about the rapport. We understand the environment that you're in. What I'm looking for is just the authenticity. So the best advice I can give is I wouldn't write a script off to the side, because that will make it really quite stiff and you know, not personal. And it's still amazing how many graduates apply, and I can see their eyes like a newsreader just working across a screen. And when you start to read things back, you lose all passion, you lose all context. I'd prefer someone to have a couple of and ahs through it, but genuinely be showing their passion, seeing how their brain's, you know, ticking over. That's really important for us. So completely get the environment you're talking about. Don't let it bother you. Just get in there, think about what you want to say, have a couple of bullet points you want to talk to, and deliver it that way. So look, it's a great question. It is hard, but I think creating an environment you're comfortable in, where there's no noise, you can really concentrate on it. Don't have people walking behind your screen who might be distracting you or listening to what you're saying, which can happen. I've seen that before. But Lachlan or Sheila, any little tips you can provide as well?
I think one of the biggest things is just a smile and show your personality through your body language as much as what you're saying. And just remember, you're talking to a camera, you're not talking to yourself on the screen. So making eye contact with the camera makes you feel a little more like you're actually there. That's probably my biggest 2 tips there.
That's awesome advice, actually. Awesome. Thanks, Lachlan.
I'd also add quickly that I just posted in chat, we got an interview simulator for these types of interviews, where you can go in and either select some populated questions, or maybe even create a mock interview yourself. It is one-sided, so it's very similar to Telstra and other graduate programs interview platforms. And you can practice, record yourself, review it, share with others, and get a better sense of, as Lachlan was indicating, body language, eye contact, smiling, natural delivery, as Chris mentioned as well, as another good tool to use.
Thank you. I really appreciate all the tips.
That's all right, Jessica. Good luck, and hopefully Telstra's of interest to you, and best luck going through that. One thing also, which I haven't mentioned, is that we do take international students too. Often it's a question that does come up. I haven't seen it come up as yet, but just to clarify, the organisation at Telstra is fully supportive of international students who are here looking for opportunities and to develop their career in this country. We typically take them into our technical streams, and I only say that because the finance streams and some of the HR streams we only need sort of 4 or 5 people into those, so we will find those from domestic students. But yeah, anyone who's here an international student visa in a technical environment looking to apply, Telstra certainly welcomes your application coming through. Go for it, Jessica. It's nice to have someone
Sorry.
else's questions.
I just have one more question. I'm just actually going through the application process now. I was looking at applying a couple of days ago, but I just wanted to confirm it was something that I really wanted to do. And in the application program, not process, that's the word. I did notice that it asks for your WAM or what your average mark is. And is that going to be a big determining factor, even if you do have a wide range of experience and quite a build up of good feedback and resume from past jobs?
Not necessarily, Jessica, no. It's a guide for us. It's really interesting. In previous years, we would receive maybe 5,000 applications. So it's another way of just us trying to cull down instead of looking through 5,000 applications coming through. We typically ask for a credit average or above, which is a bit of an indicator. So you probably don't want to share in this environment, but if you're at that, that's terrific. But no, it's one indicator, one of many. We're also looking for diversity. We're looking for great degrees coming through. We do want people who've got some other outside interests that they can bring into the organisation as well. So it's one of many, many determining factors. So don't be too concerned or held up by that, or don't let it stop you from applying, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Unless there's any other questions, Jessica, can I pick on you? Can I ask what you're studying?
Hi, Chris. Yeah. I got a question for you. Sorry about that. Yeah. For individuals, for fresh graduates who has recently completed their degree, so there are some individuals like who has genuine interest for two fields. So let's say information and cybersecurity and data analytics and management, right? So during the Telstra Graduate Program, is there any sort of procedure that they can select what they are genuinely interested in, and within those two topics, those two streams? So are there any like projects that they can upskill their knowledge and skills, and so what's the whole procedure about that?
Yeah, do you mean when you're in the graduate program itself?
Yes.
I'd answer it by saying those 8 pathways, they're not completely separate pathways. There's a lot of overlapping, there's a lot of transferable skills that go into that. So someone who has an interest in cyber, but also has an interest in data, okay, they might be in cyber, but they might say, well, let's put you onto some data analytic projects within the cybersecurity team, focusing on the numbers of security attacks that might come in, how do we handle that, how do we monitor it, all that sort of stuff. Same as if you're in a network engineering role and you have an interest in data as well, there'll be opportunities for you to develop those skills. So that's where I would encourage graduates to continue to talk to their managers, their chapter leads. You will flow what we call internally, it's flow to work. So you'll have a manager throughout the time. You then flow into various missions and into projects. That's a conversation you have with your manager to say, I've got a passion for this area, I've got a passion for this area. These where some of my skills align. Are there missions that I could roll into that will give me some of that exposure and develop those things as well? So yes, everything is feasible, everything is appropriate. Where we probably have to start really drawing the lines, if you came in and said, well, I'm in cybersecurity, but I've got an interest in HR, can I go and work in HR? Not really. These are programs specifically designed to build talent in those pathways. We'll put you into the right areas. Yep, you'll be able to move around those chapters and get that experience. But Telstra is such a massive organisation that we can't have you moving around too much, because all you're doing is building a bit of breadth. You're not building any depth, which is the depth of what we need to continue to really focus on to ensure you're role ready. And by that I mean at the end of your program, you're performing well, you've done your training, you've been able to impact on projects, you're ready to take that next step, which is typically an elevated position in the organisation, which of course comes with a significant increase in salary as well.
Great, thank you, Chris.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking the question.